Soulmates, plenty of conversation for you today. Welcome to it. It's Wednesday, February 22nd. The sentencing for the killer of Nipsey Hussle is finally here. Plus, one company is searching for a sailor rescued at sea. Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report. I'm Courtney Hicks, giving you some February Black History Month before it all goes away. You know, we only have 28 days.
You're right. A little Zamunda, a little Wakanda, a little Ghana.
At first I was like, no, I'm gonna do this.
It looks good on you. Looks good on you.
Thank you.
And I'm Cordelai Corte. Remember, history has been made in Minnesota for felons. We have the full story for you, and there's a shortage of blacks in a very important industry. It's the stories that are impacting our people. Our
news, views, and our voice. So let's get into the top of the conversation today as friends and family came out to say their final goodbyes to Ariel Anderson. She's a 19-year-old who was one of the 3 students killed in the Michigan State University shooting. Ariel was a Grosse Pointe North High School graduate that sits right outside of Detroit. She hoped to become a surgeon. Her funeral was held at Zion Hope Church right here in Detroit. Several people spoke, including Governor Whitmer. Funeral service were held for the other 2 students killed. That's Brian Frazier and Alexandria Verner over the weekend. And what is just so heartbreaking, aside from the mass shootings and all of the politics and the cries for change, is that this young lady was on her way. She was planning on graduating from Michigan State early so she can get right into being a doctor, a pediatrician, I do believe, and begin to help people, help the community. And for this life just to be cut down senselessly, it just adds more insult to the injury, to the heartbreak. And to see that family come together in mourning was devastating.
That's right. That's right. And I know you are a Michigan State alumni, and I know you've been in touch with some other alum that are just in the early stages of healing from this. You know, all reports aside, how are you doing? How are alumni doing? How's the school community doing?
You know what? I don't want to make it a me thing. You know, I was on Michigan State's campus, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I've gone back here and there for homecoming, sometimes to be maybe a guest speaker, especially in the, communications department. I have a few mentees and younger sorors and peers who are sorors as well. So I go back every now and again, but I was really more so concerned with the health and well-being of the students and, friends who stayed a part of Michigan State University family closely, who are now employees, whether it be in the administration department, whether it be in the counseling department, the dean of offices. I was concerned about them as well. And it's a slow process because everybody is so different in regards to the way they handle it, in regards to the way they frame this thing. And you can't force it. And for those who are ready to go back on Monday, they're back. And for those who are struggling, kudos to Michigan State for making some options available for students and faculty to really take their time with this thing.
Oh, well, good luck to everybody on the healing
path.
Right. From Michigan to New York, where the daughter of Malcolm X is suing the CIA and FBI. In the $100 million lawsuit, the family claims the agencies conspired with each other and allegedly covered up evidence in Malcolm X's assassination. Malcolm X was shot as a crowd gathered to hear him speak at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City in 1965. Now, 3 men were convicted, but 2 were later exonerated after renewed investigations revealed that authorities held back some information. Courtney, the 2 men who were wrongly convicted, sued and won $36 million in damages. And so the family of Malcolm X is saying, well, if the folks that you wrongly accused
show us
got
the
$36 million,
That's right.
Then what about us, folks who lost their father and who have endured a severe trauma? And so a lot of people paying attention to this case, especially given that this lawsuit was filed on Malcolm X's birthday, or I'm sorry, the anniversary of what would have been Malcolm X's assassination. That was just yesterday.
And what I find this to be a travesty, I mean, all throughout the years since the assassination, there's always been talk, there's been small talk, there's been whispers, there's been conspiracies, and for legitimate arguments, for legitimate proof to be coming up years and years later, a generation, or so later, proves that these whispers, weren't in vain, that there was always something going on surrounding this assassination. Of course, we have the story that was given to us, and then it sounds like for sure there is a backstory. And you fast forward, and now there are monies being distributed because people have suffered by way of either the lies or the secrecy or the truth not being impeded in regards to what needed to come out. So, big ups to the remaining family members. I hope they get all of that money, and big ups to those men who were wrongly convicted and just continue to press through. And I don't think we still have the full truth in regards to Malcolm X's assassination. And we might as well put MLK and Medgar Evers and a few others.
Yeah, and we know that there were programs like COINTELPRO. This was a real program that existed among federal law enforcement to infiltrate the black community, infiltrate black organizations, and disrupt and discredit, among other things. We know that there are even allegations that federal law enforcement infiltrated some of the Black Lives Matter chapters across the country as well. And so I think this lawsuit is going to help a lot of folks get the information that we need. Bring the truth. Look, what do we say? Our promise every show: our views, our news, and our voice, and our truth. And it seems that the daughter of Malcolm X is quite frankly trying to seek out the truth.
Yeah, march on, daughters, march on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to march on here. At the state capitol, the Senate passed a measure that restores voting rights for felons in Minnesota. This is huge. Now, the bill will allow them to vote as soon as they are out of prison instead of after completing probation or parole. Now, the House already passed it earlier this month, and Governor Walz has said he'll sign it. Nicolai, we've talked about this before here at our desk here at Fox Soul's Black Report. The argument, should a felon, be able to, carry on, as they would prior to the felony conviction? Should that stay with them and follow them throughout their lives, especially when you're talking about coming back into society, having paid your debt to society? Should you be able to participate as if?
Yeah, and I think the answer is a resounding yes. And you don't have to just take my word for it. Yeah. There are 21 other states that restore the voting rights when people with felonies, with felony convictions, leave prison. Right? There's no extra paperwork that you got to do. There's waiting period. If you've done your time, if you have served your debt, then you should have all of your rights restored, including your voting rights. And so this is a major step forward. It was a close vote. I think this measure won by 5 votes in the Minnesota State Senate. The governor has pledged to sign it when it hits his desk. And this is going to make a material difference in terms of the number of black folks that can cast their vote. Before this was passed, 1% of white people, 6% of black people, and 9% of Native Americans in Minnesota could not vote in 2018. Once this law is signed into law, rights will be restored, and that will drop to 0.1% of white folks, 1.5% of black folks, and 2% of Native American folks, respectively. That's a big difference. And and we report on these elections, all the time. So many of these elections are so close, from president to Senate to school board. Hello, AP Black History, right? And so every vote counts, and this is going to make a big difference in Minnesota.
Agree.
Yeah. Well, moving from Minnesota to Virginia, where voters are making history, having elected Jennifer McClellan to Congress. Democratic State Senator Jennifer McClellan won a special election just yesterday to be a U.S. representative. She replaces Democratic Representative Donald McEachin. You might remember that Representative McEachin died back in November. This makes her the state's first black woman in Congress once she's sworn in, and there will be a record 28 black women in total in Congress.
All right, let's move on to the First Lady as Jill Biden opened a 5-day two-country visit to Africa on Wednesday, during which she will focus on empowering women and youth and highlight food insecurity in the Horn of the Africa region. She and Namib's First Lady embraced on the tarmac before Jill Biden greeted waiting U.S. and Namibian diplomatics and government officials. She was accompanied by her granddaughter, Naomi Biden, on this trip. It's Jill Biden's sixth time in Africa, but her first visit as First Lady. She is following the footsteps of former First Ladies who all made the trip across the Atlantic Ocean in the name of trying to help foster goodwill towards the United States. And this is always going to be a good look if her husband can sneak over to Ukraine in the darkness of night to go see about them folks. I appreciate First Lady Jill Biden taking a trip across the Atlantic to go see about these folks.
Yeah, and this isn't First Lady Jill Biden's first visit to sub-Saharan Africa. She's been there multiple times, at least a couple times, with then Vice President Biden. But it's important that our soulmates recognize how important this is, because Africa is the fastest growing and youngest region of the world. A lot of people don't know this. And by 2050, one in every four people in the world will be African.
Yeah.
1 in 4 people in the world. And so it's good to see that not only the president, but the First Lady recognizes that we should not ignore the people of Africa, because the people of Africa represent the future.
And it brings us back to the earlier efforts of our famous FLOTUS, Forever FLOTUS, the Bring Our Girls Back, Save Our Girls, those issues. We know that Oprah Winfrey has been, dedicated to helping young girls in Africa have the same sort of opportunities that young black girls here in the States have. So it's good to see Jill Biden put a period on that thing and go see about the good folks in Africa.
That's right. That's right. Well, back here at home, the man convicted of killing rapper Nipsey Hussle back in 2019 is finally being sentenced. 32-year-old Eric R. Holder was found guilty of first-degree murder of the 33-year-old Grammy-nominated artist. Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed outside of his clothing store, The Marathon, in South Los Angeles, where both men grew up. Holder is likely to serve life in prison.
A lot of people waiting for this to come down. It just takes a while for things to move through the system. I don't know if maybe the pandemic had something to do with that, slowing that down. But what I'm taking from this is, yes, we need justice in this case. But, it looks like, it appears as though from the outside looking in that the family is doing their best to move on, to live in that legacy. We've seen, Lauren London back at acting, after some hesitancy, hit movie. I know there's still some a battle within the family about custody with one of the children, the eldest daughter, I do believe. But, we would love to have Nipsey here, of course. But with what has happened, it looks like there's going to be justice, obviously. And it appears as though that family is moving on and continuing that healing process, which I believe, continues for forever. I mean, it's something that you just never get over, but you can get through it. It's really one day at a time, one moment, one breath at a time, having experienced such unspeakable loss.
Yeah, and I think it was also noteworthy that Lauren London and nobody from Nipsey's family attended any part of the trial, and they didn't even give victim impact statements. And so it sounds like they are moving on with their life. And
sometimes no response is a response. And so I can see that. I can see why they chose to go that route. All right, so do y'all remember when we first told you about this sailor who survived at sea for days on nothing but spices and Heinz ketchup packets? Well, now Heinz ketchup is trying to catch up with this guy, pun intended. The company posted to IG saying they need soulmates, they need your help in tracking down the amazing man, these are their words, with an amazing story. Elvis Francois was the brave sailor who survived while adrift at sea for 24 days. Heinz wants to celebrate his safe return home and help to buy a new boat, but they can't seem to find him, which I find that hard to believe, because when this story broke a few weeks ago, Heinz ketchup, it was a huge story. And it was at that moment that they should have really got at this guy and helped him along. But, better late than never. I'm just confused as to why it's so difficult to locate him. I know he's from an island, but all the press that he got in that moment, and with social media being so far stretched as it is, there shouldn't be that much of a problem finding this guy.
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe he's watching Fox Soul's Black Report, and maybe he's watching the story right now, and he knows that Heinz is looking for him, and he's gonna call Heinz up and say, "Here I am."
But all that money Heinz has, who I don't know who their parent company is, you can't tell me that they can't find this man. please.
Well, you know,
or couldn't have already found him.
In due time.
Or got on the story when it first broke. Like, help me out here.
Well, you know, from Heinz ketchup to tomato sauce, still ahead. Is pizza causing controversy in Columbus? It's not what you think.
A local pizzeria is stirring things up with their help wanted sign. Find out why they chose to get creative and how people are reacting to the joke. Coming up next on Fox Soul's Black Report.
Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report, the place for our news, our views, and our voice. Now, the snow is piling up, along with travel delays in the Northeast.
Yeah,
we know it?
We are getting ready. Many people here, it's ice for us, an ice storm. The schools are closed.
It was sleeting when I drove in today.
It was. I'm glad you made it safely. You just got to slow down. Many people are now trying to dig out or either prepare after 2 days of back-to-back storms and then the predicted storms that are coming in certain areas across the country. So it's that old saying, be grateful because there's someone else who's worse off than you.
Don't we know it? Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Northeast is bracing for its third significant winter storm in less than 2 weeks. The storm is expected to bring gusty winds, minor coastal flooding, and areas of snow from New York to Maine. Some areas may see as much as 20 inches. Thousands of people are still without power after last week's storm, which dropped more than 2 feet of snow in some areas. And let me tell you something, Mother Nature, old man winter, nothing to mess with. You really have to be prepared, even if sometimes, you know, we rely on the meteorologists when sometimes, you know, they might not get it as accurate or as right. I still think it's worth it to heed to the warnings and prepare yourself because I think nature is just so unpredictable and you'd rather be prepared and it not happen than it happen and to not be prepared.
But, you know, we also have to remember that it costs money. It costs money to be prepared, right? And I oftentimes think about, you know, the folks that, you know, may have mobility issues in terms of, you know, being able to, you know, scoop the snow off of their cars and scoop their sidewalks and their driveways, you know, and I think about, you know, the folks that can't afford for that food to spoil if the power goes out in the refrigerator. And so, you know, let's make sure that we're also checking on each other as these storms are making their way across the country. We can at least do that much, right?
I agree.
All right. Well, according to the Association of American Medical Colleges, only about 5.7% of physicians in the United States identify as Black or African American. Now, this comes as the U.S. population has an estimated 12% of the U.S. population that is Black or African American. Experts believe one reason for this can be traced back to how Black people have been historically excluded from medicine and the institutional and systemic racism in our society. Did you know that the first Black American to hold a medical degree, Dr. James McCune Smith, had to enroll at the University of Glasgow Medical School in Scotland? Can you believe that?
I did not know that. And that is why we have the program that we have, so we can learn things. You learn something new every day. Listen, we've had these conversations before, right here at this very desk, and with all of the issues that we have when it comes to medicine and how we just sometimes, you know, foundationally just don't trust it. You know, if you take a look at the history, you know, with Black people and medicine, we just don't trust it. We have a hard time getting to our doctors if we have a primary care doctor. And then, you know, when we are in the care of doctors that sometimes don't look like us, sometimes we question the treatment. Sometimes we question the diagnosis. You know, is this doctor, you know, do they care the way we need them to care? If you know, I was his sister or his mom or his daughter. We've talked about this when it comes to, you know, the reproduction issues that Black women have. When it comes to the maternal issues that women have, you know, with having babies and things of that nature. So, I mean, having a doctor that looks like you
makes a difference.
Makes a difference.
Makes a big difference. And affordability and access also make a major difference. And we're talking about affordability and access to medical school. I mean, think about it. If we didn't have Black HBCU medical schools, right, we would be in an even worse way in terms of number of Black physicians across the country.
Some in the works of being opened. Some, you know, folks are paying attention to and pushing some money into. So We'll have to keep tabs on that. More black doctors. Sounds like that's what we need. All right. Former NBA ballers Kenyon Dooling and Allen Anderson have been sentenced to 2 years in prison for defrauding the NBA out of millions of dollars in a multi-million-dollar healthcare fraud scheme. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office recently announced that Dooling, who once served as vice president of the NBA Players Association, was sentenced to 30 months in prison. And on February 10th, Anderson, who you also see here, was sentenced to 24 months. Dooling was accused of receiving over $360,000 in fraudulent claims, as well as helping other players file false claims from the National Basketball Association Players Health and Welfare Benefit Plan. Dooling was the 10th player selected in the first round of the 2000 draft.
Why? But why? You know, I mean, you're already doing pretty well in the NBA, or was doing pretty well in the NBA, and then, was an executive at the NBA Players Association, likely still doing very well. Why? Why the fraud? Why the scheme? Why roping in so many other, former players into all this? It just,
I don't know. Maybe this
makes me sigh.
Maybe the schemey thing was just in them. Sometimes maybe you're just a schemer by nature. But here's the thing, the NBA is pretty much kind of controlled by the players, if you will. They're going to be the one league that's going to get what they want. They have a very strong players union, and they get what they want, including their money. I mean, those contracts are guaranteed. I want to say back in the day, you would ride the bench for $750,000. Now it's up in the millions just to ride the bench. So, your first frame of mind is to question why. Why would they need the money? I know some contracts aren't as lucrative as others, but you have just a golden opportunity to make it to the league and make money that you probably would have never made, as far as everyday money is concerned. Why? And now you gotta pay the piper.
They sure do. Well, moving on to, speaking of paying the piper, we're going to move to the NASDAQ, where a passionate group of black and brown change makers recently opened the stock market at NASDAQ headquarters in New York City with a historic bell-ringing ceremony. During a live broadcast, Essence Ventures founder Rich Dennis stood proudly alongside two members of the entrepreneurial cohort, Monique Rodriguez, founder of Miel Organics, and Pinky Cole, founder of Slutty Vegan, as they sounded the bell in support of black business growth. Take a look.
In this room today, we have some of the world's most dynamic founders, funders, executives, and leaders.
The family that we've built, the ecosystem that we've put together, that is now empowering and driving real value and real wealth in the black community is just astounding. We in this room and those that believe in this mission are not going to regress. We're going to continue to forge forward.
What a great example of investing in us, as a part of his landmark sale of Sundial brand. Rich Dennis, he created this $100 million New Voices for Women of Color fund. He provided mentorship and investment in black women founders experiencing extraordinary challenges. We talk about this all the time. Challenges such as access to capital and resources and relationships with retailers and so much more. And so this is part of what can happen when we invest in one another.
Yeah, and I hear you. And you did mention access to capital, and that's really been the big push. That's been the big concern. We just talked a couple of shows ago about how well black businesses are flourishing through the pandemic. A lot of sisters in particular said, you know what, I'm gonna just go out here and make this happen. They became entrepreneurs. However, we know that we're falling short with gaining the access to the capital, either for these startups or to maintain our businesses. And so, it's great to see stories like this, but let's not settle, and let's not get too comfortable, because there are black businesses out here who need the help, who are not getting the help. There are black folks out here with some amazing ideas that they want to take to business, and they just cannot get the support, more so the money, to make those things happen. And that is still unfair. A lot of racial discrimination wrapped up in all of that.
Yeah, but like Pinky Cole, for example, the founder of Slutty Vegan. So I remember back when she was a producer for Iyanla Fix My Life. She worked with Montre on
Your
that
husband?
show, and to see her, now as this mogul, to see her as a part of this cohort. I mean, she's a living, breathing example that
think of how
big
many
dreams
more,
can come true.
How many more Pinkies are out here? Is
They
what I'm
are.
saying.
They're out
and
there.
They need opportunities as well. And she's giving opportunities, I want to say. But there's many more out here who who are struggling just to get to first base, and we gotta stay mindful of that.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Normally, if you hear pizza and mixed reactions in the same sentence, you're probably debating on different toppings. Like, I cannot stand pineapple on pizza. I think that is the worst thing ever. But in Columbus, the discussion is centered around something much more different. Posted in a huge print outside Santorino's Pizzeria is a sign reading, "Now hiring non-stupid people." The pizza shop saying the need for new employees is so serious that they decided to get creative so they could stand out, from the others who are looking to fill positions. For the most part, people in the Columbus area are enjoying the joke. You see it as a joke or an insult or what?
Listen, I just see it as folks trying to get a little attention, to get people in the kitchen, cooking them pies, and so it seems to be working.
I guess, I don't know, maybe we should call and say, hey, have you gotten, some job apps based upon, this particular sign?
We should now. All I know is Greg's Pizza in Detroit didn't have to put up a sign like that.
No, and I had that last night.
That's all I know.
I went and ordered and picked that thing up last night, and me and the husband, it felt like a Saturday night. You have pizza on the weekend, Saturday night, but yeah. Pizza's just good. Whether the people work there are stupid or not, the pizza's just good.
Especially when the weather's bad.
It's stupid, but I'm just saying, pizza's just good. If it's good pizza, it's good pizza.
Good pizza's good pizza in any weather, especially when it's cold like this. Up next, an Arizona City Council is set to vote on renaming some local streets that have some troubling ties.
Yeah, find out why community members want to replace these names with civil rights activists and pioneers who fought for desegregation. Those stories and more coming up on Fox Soul's Black Report. Soulmates, welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report, the place for our news, our views, and our voice. As we continue to honor Black History Month, we're introducing you to a Milwaukee artist helping children learn in a fun way.
That's right. He's helping them recreate iconic photos of important people in Black history. Fox's Aaron Mabin has the story.
There it is. Say cheese. Gotcha.
It's picture day.
Gotcha.
At Milwaukee College Prep.
Oh yeah, no glare. Let's take a couple more.
And Terrence Sims
you ready?
has some help getting smiles.
One more time, look right at the tiger, okay? Say cheese. So if you see a picture of a kid smiling, you're easily hooked to it. Look at the tiger.
But this well-dressed pose is not for the yearbook.
Gotcha.
Students are recreating photographs of Black icons.
You ready? Let's see what you got.
Logan Peterson is a knockout as the greatest Muhammad Ali.
Good, excited, and fun.
Say cheese.
Each February, Sims uses photography to celebrate Black History Month with students. It all started with 3 girls recreating a poster for the movie Hidden Figures.
I really feel like when you know who you are, you're just better all around. So how can you know yourself without knowing your roots and knowing your past?
Over the last 6 years, Sims has highlighted the people who paved the way for the children he captures.
And this is the perfect opportunity for them to get in there, get excited, and see their life come, or like their past come to life.
At this shoot, move over for Do the Right Thing director Spike Lee. And Minnie Mae Jemison, the first Black woman to travel to space, a past president and first lady, and a civil rights icon.
What did Martin Luther King do?
He stand up for himself.
And other people too, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Priceless reactions.
Look at that.
You like it?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Photoshop and imagination make the green screen pictures come to life. They're printed, shared on social media, and used as tools to teach.
So they really love seeing themselves. So I hope when people see it, they get excited to learn more about Black culture. I think we're more than what meets the eye.
Who knew?
Bring it down so I can still see your face, right there.
Picture day.
One more big smile, say cheese.
Could be so powerful.
What you think?
Good.
You like that one? That might be my favorite one.
In Milwaukee, Aaron Mabin, Fox News.
Our thanks to Aaron Maben for that wonderful story. Just for the right occasion, Black History Month and beyond. Now from Milwaukee to Arizona, where the city council in Tempe is scheduled to vote on whether or not to replace park and road names that have century-old ties to the Ku Klux Klan. A Klan chapter dating back to the 1920s called Butte Klan Number 3 included many prominent Tempe residents, including mayors and council members, bankers, and other power brokers. In 2021, historical research determined that several parks and streets were named after some of those prominent Klan residents. Tempe council members are now considering the replacement of those names during a March meeting with new names that were proposed by community members and vetted by council-appointed volunteers.
Considering? Like, this isn't a done deal? Like, hey, we need to, right the wrong, course correct, redirect. This the energy here. They're just considering changing it.
That's what they said.
And they're the ones who put out the ties. These names, they said, hey, these names are tied to this, this, and that, and we're considering.
In 2023. In 2023. But you know what? This is also a part of why people have such an issue about Black history in schools, because the more we learn about our history, the history of the fight for civil rights in this country, the fight for equality in this country, the more that people learn about these things, the more that folks in positions of power, influence, and authority are called to account. And that's a part of what's happening in Arizona. They're being called to account. Like, wait a minute, these street names are named after members of the Klan. That's not okay. What you gonna do about it?
But I also feel like the more
this March meeting that's coming up it should be live. Because I think so many more people, not just the residents of Tempe, but I think folks across the country could learn a lot based upon what they're considering at this meeting.
But I also feel like a lot of what is being discovered and unearthed, the more discovery, the more there's also this push for it to just stay the same. It's okay. It's been this way for however long. It won't bother you. Just leave it alone. That's the problem I have. Considering, please, I wonder if they're gonna, like you said, make that meeting live so folks can watch in on it, because I just want to hear the thinking behind it. The thinking that it's just a consideration and not a done deal to get rid of these names.
Another teachable moment.
It is.
We'll see where they land on this, hopefully on the right side of history.
All right, there are grassroots efforts underway to get hockey's first Black coach inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Hockey Nova Scotia has started a petition titled Paris to Toronto, urging Nova Scotia-born John Paris Jr., who is now 76, to be recognized for his contributions to the game. Paris is also the first Black scout in the NHL with the St. Louis Blues, the first Black general manager in professional hockey, and the first Black pro hockey coach who led the Atlanta Knights to a Turner Cup in the now defunct International Hockey League. A Hockey Hall of Fame official said the deadline for public submission is March 15th. Soulmates. Now, the petition had collected over 2,300 signatures so far. And this is really something to jump on. To put an exclamation point on how our history is American history and how there's been so much history that's been erased. Now, I'm from Detroit. Here in Michigan, hockey's always huge. I don't know if it's because Canada is across the street, but hockey's always been big, and it was big with young Black kids. I know it was a very expensive sport. And a lot of parents had a hard time keeping up with it. But what I loved when Jack Adams Arena was open was you would just throw the young boys and some girls on, but it was, geared towards boys. You would just throw them on the ice and you would just teach them how to play hockey. It wasn't about ice skating. You just teach them the game and the way that they would adapt and just act, just go for it and go at it. Just as natural as they would basketball or football was just amazing. I don't quite know what happened. I think it was a Pale League here back in the day. So hockey around here is big. You will see Black folks with Red Wing jerseys on it. I know we go to the games, but we love it. We love it. And there's a whole Black history to hockey.
There's a whole Black history that we don't know enough of. And so I can't wait to learn more, because right here on Fox Soul's Black Report, we dig into these things, not just during Black History Month, but year-round.
365.
That's right. Well, in case you missed it, former NBA player Brad Daugherty has made Daytona 500 history as the first black car owner to win the race. The winning car was driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and the adrenaline drive came with a double overtime, making it the longest running of the Great American Race. Now, the 2 overtimes pushed the 65th running of the race to a record 212 laps. Can you believe that? I can't believe it. Unfortunately, Doherty missed the history-making moment after leaving due to an eye irritation. The team is owned by Tad and Jody Geschwichter, along with Doherty.
What's their last name?
Geschwichter.
Listen, I'm excited about
your cousins.
Okay, that's good to hear about this story. I'm excited about here in Detroit. They're bringing back the Grand Prix, and it is a race through the streets. It's the Formula racing cars. They block off just about every street, you know, downtown Detroit and throughout. And these cars, these Formula One cars, just race through the streets. And it was always a big to-do. I've been gone for a while, so I'm just coming back. So I'm just learning the politics behind how it's back, why it's back, and folks are excited. So, you know, with Detroit being, you know, the big black city that it is, we've always, like I'm saying, like the hockey thing, if we just dig a little deeper, like we attempt to do here day to day on Fox Soul's Black Report, you'll know that we have always been there. And so it's not a matter of being or feeling welcomed. We've been there from jump.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting back in touch and coming back to it.
It's black history in the making.
That's right. That's right. And speaking of black history, it is time to highlight significant events and achievements by black people that have shaped our world. It's today in Black history. So let's get into 1979. The Caribbean island nation of St. Lucia gains independence from the United Kingdom. Also today in 1989, that was the year I graduated from high school. Thank you, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Will Smith wins the first Grammy Award in the category Best Rap Song for the hit single Parents Just Don't Understand. It was so huge. We celebrated because we were like, hip hop is here to stay, rap music, baby. And finally, born on this day is former basketball legend, still a legend, Julius Dr. J. Irving. He is 73 today. It was good to see him during the All-Star weekend to pass off that slam dunk contest trophy. All right, Mardi Gras is still being celebrated, so a lot of folks will be heading over to their local bar or restaurant to get a taste of New Orleans. Sylvia Perez introduces us to Chef Brian Jupiter, whose neighborhood hotspot is bringing back memories of his childhood, serving up authentic cuisine while letting the good times roll year-round.
When Mardi Gras season rolls around, Ina May's Tavern is in its element. This Wicker Park restaurant specializes in Southern Creole cuisine.
So the gumbo is my grandmother's recipe.
Chef Brian Jupiter is in the kitchen cooking up recipes he grew up eating and influenced by his great-grandmother, who his place is named after.
So Ina May was my great-grandmother. She lived in Unitas, Louisiana, a very small town. But she sat on all these acres of land, and she was just probably the nicest little old lady ever.
Besides the seafood gumbo, there's red beans and rice, fried chicken biscuits, beignets, and more.
Chef says the only way to eat it is hot, so here we go. Oh, look at that.
Ina May's Tavern and Packaged Goods is a taste of New Orleans from a chef with New Orleans roots who says this style of cooking is truly an art form.
When you're from there, you cook it different, you know, and excuse me, it is a challenge to teach people how to cook, you know, New Orleans food that's not from there as well, because it's more so about looking and tasting and smelling.
Ina May's has been recognized by the prestigious Michelin Guide, and if you want to take it home, they sell his special seasoned flour, hot sauces, and a lot of other products. It's just one of 2 restaurants he owns. The other is called Frontier. It focuses on whole smoked meats, but Ina May is his love.
This is my heart, I eat red beans and rice every day. I eat gumbo almost every day. And so, it gives me a chance to go home.
Jupiter is all about family inspiration and inspiring others. He recognizes his role as a celebrity chef comes with a price, a responsibility to hopefully motivate other aspiring chefs of color and, in general, young people of color to realize hard work can equal success.
The push through is really in you. It's built in you, and I can say that about every black person that walks the streets, is that we are built different because of what we've been through as a people. And so whether you know it or not, it's in you to fight, to prevail.
And prevail he has, and his work isn't over yet.
And I want to have the opportunity to allow people who are struggling to open restaurants, aid them in their journey of doing it the right way.
Sylvia Perez, Fox 32, Chicago.
He got a strong stomach. He can eat gumbo and rice and beans
every day.
Every day. That's a strong
every
stomach.
day.
You know what I love about this is as black folks, even as the recipe may change, from here and there slightly. Yeah. I know the folks in New Orleans, a lot of them migrated to California. So once they got there, maybe there was something by way of that culture, black culture there, that they added to but it's still the same thing. At the very foundation of it, it's still a tradition. It's still culture. And no matter how you might whip that thing up, most times it's good, whether you add this in there or take away that or put that in there. It's kind of like mac and cheese, gumbo. Everybody does mac and cheese sometimes a little differently, but if the end result is goodness, then my God.
That's right. Don't you be bringing no vegan mac and cheese to the cookout.
I would never bring vegan mac and cheese.
I have some friends. You know who you are.
But you can't eat mac and cheese.
I can't. I'm lactose intolerant.
You would probably need a vegan solution.
I would appreciate some. But you know what's also so amazing to me? How and God bless the ancestors, for leaving us with recipes that we've been able to monetize, right? Think about how many soul food restaurants exist, not just in Chicago, but across the country and around the world because of old grandma's recipe or old grandpa's recipe, right? And so I think this is just another example of how our legacy endures.
Yeah, from scratch, and we know it by heart, most of us do, the good cooks. Hello. For more of these types of stories and more, be sure to access Fox Soul's video on demand on any of our streaming platforms, and don't forget to download the Fox Soul app, honey. Be quite a lie. What you got to say?
Well, coming up, we have big news. A celebrity couple has announced they're expecting their first child.
Oh, yes. Stay tuned for more details on the exciting journey to parenthood from one of hip-hop's icons. It's all coming up next on Fox Soul's Black Report.
Lucky them. Welcome back, Soulmates, to Fox Soul's Black Report, the place for our news, our views, and our voice. Now, with that said, Idris Elba and his wife Sabrina will accompany EPA Administrator Michael Regan to Ghana and Sierra Leone to address climate change.
Yeah, Elba's challenge to the EPA to include African nations prompted the trip. Now, the group will focus on climate change's effects on Africa's food supply, particularly on smallholder farmers. The Elbas emphasize the importance of empowering Africa through trade and investment rather than relying solely on aid. They want to create job security and entrepreneurship for Africa's youth. And staying with Idris with his fine self for a moment, the actor recently expressed distaste for the label Black Actor, saying it hindered his opportunities. Elba criticized the industry's race fixation, saying it might limit people's ambitions. He acknowledged that racism exists, but refused to let it define his acting career. Elba tweeted that he still identifies black, but doesn't want to be constrained by the term in his career. What say ye, ni Quarterly Corte?
I think we all can understand that. I mean, we're black, and our experience is able to transcend, right? And sometimes, people limit, what we can do. And you know, what, in his case, what roles he can play, you know, just because he's black. I mean, I'm trying to think which movie it was. It was a Viola Davis film. I can't remember which one it was, but it wasn't originally written for a black woman. I think it was How to Get Away with Murder. The character Annalise Keating. I don't think it was originally written for a black woman to play that role. And so sometimes, you know, we forget that, you know, black folks are capable of being in spaces that historically we haven't been in.
But I hear his push, but like, can you really get away from it? I mean, because we've all been in situations where despite our talent and creativity and wonderfulness, all they're gonna see first is black. I mean, even being a woman, I think they see black first sometimes, you know, when, in my experience, when, you know, you're going for different jobs or different opportunities, they just see black. And so I think that's something that you can never get away from. So I like the fact that he married that, the fact that, you know, he's not, you know, denying his blackness, but at the same time, he wants them to see the artist first. I think that's a difficult ask for me. I'm not even into, but I get it, because I'm not even into the African American thing. I appreciate the title and everybody being politically correct, but I'm just good with black. So I mean, I think it's a difficult ask, because I think when you think about movie roles and how they want to cast people and who they want to cast, I think the first thing they're going to see is black.
But I think there are experiences that we have that are human. And I think that's what he's trying to say, you know, is don't typecast me. In other words, you know, there are a range of characters I can play. There's a range of ways in which I can contribute to the world.
We get that. I think the struggle is the other.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why we want to share the story. Yeah. So folks here can get it too. Now, speaking of getting it, the Brat got herself a baby. The bump is coming. The Brat and wife Jessica Judy Harris Dupart are expecting a baby. Yay for them. The couple revealed exclusively in this week's People issue. The Brat, who's 48, says it's been quite a journey. Harris Dupart, who is already a mother of 3, convinced the Brat to carry the child after experiencing health complications following her own egg retrieval procedure. Now, the couple is now 18 weeks pregnant, and the journey to motherhood will be featured on their WeTV reality show. And so congratulations to the Brat. It's never too late to become a parent.
Yeah, just, you know, obviously I'm assuming she's getting the best health care. I mean, 48, I think you automatically get put on the risky list, if you will. So we're hoping the best with both the baby and the Brat's health. I was surprised that, you know, she decided to carry. I knew that there was baby talk, but I thought Judy would be the one to carry. But that's some powerful love, because for Judy to be able to convince the Brat to carry because she wanted her, I saw this on our good friend Sherry Shepherd's show, she wanted her to experience motherhood and experience carrying a life inside of you. And so Judy must have some hella love, because you would have just never thought that the Brat would be the one to carry.
Yeah,
you know?
And also a sign of the times. I mean, it's just great to see, you know, them as a couple being celebrated, you know, their parenting journey being documented on WeTV, and so we'll certainly be tuning into that.
Yeah, good for them. All right, actor and comedian Eddie Murphy revealed that he owns the original Sugar Shack painting by artist Ernie Barnes, which was featured on the 1970 sitcom Good Times. Murphy purchased the painting from the Marvin Gaye estate for $50,000, and it is now valued, get this, at over $20 million. The painting depicts a room full of black people dancing, singing, and playing with a sign that reads, "Welcome to the Sugar Shack." Murphy emphasized that he has the original painting, while a duplicate sold for $16 million. Wow.
Nicki Minaj is celebrating Carnival in her native Trinidad and Tobago a year after returning to the country for the same event right before the pandemic. She recently collaborated with fellow Trinidadian artists Michelle Montano and Dicetra for a remix of their soca song, Shake the Place. In Trinidad, Minaj also linked up with other local performers, including Patrice Roberts, for an all-Trini affair. The annual Trinidad and Tobago Carnival is one of many events celebrated in the Caribbean and the Americas to mark the day before Ash Wednesday.
It's always a big celebration, Carnival, no matter, what island you're a part of. I know here, back in my day, high school time, my parents used to let me go. We used to jump on a train. Toronto's about 4 hours away. It was a party train because you start, popping bottles as soon as the train pulled out of the station. And there was a carnival there in downtown Toronto, just in the streets. And because that is such a mixed bag of all kinds of Caribbean cultures, it was just a party on top of a party, honey. And so that was my really first experience of Carnival, even though I do have Caribbean in me. I had never been in a Caribbean country. That was because I didn't have to, because I could just go to Toronto and have that experience. But I do want to get to like Jukano and all of those great parties before it's all over. It's on my list.
It's on my list too. Road trip.
Jukano.
Coming up on the Black Report, we're celebrating Black excellence.
Yeah, and we'll tell you the woman who's making history as the first Black woman to be honored for her barbecue skills. Oh, you're going to want to see this. We'll be right back. It's Fox Soul's Black Report. You're watching.
85-year-old Desiree Robinson is the matriarch of the long-standing family-owned restaurant Cozy Corner in North Memphis and has become the first Black woman to be inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame.
Who knew? I didn't know there was a Barbecue Hall of Fame. I know now. She also marked the historic recognition as the first living person, Black person, to receive the honor. Robinson co-founded Cozy Corner with her late husband, Raymond. He died back in 2001, who she said was the mastermind behind the success of the restaurant. They opened the business back in 1977, and the restaurant is now 4 generations in with help from the entire family.
That's right. Cozy Corner stands by its tradition of greeting every customer that walks through the doors so they know they are at home. According to sources, Cozy Corner is listed as one of the top 10 barbecue restaurants in Memphis, and you better believe the next time I'm in Memphis, I'm going to show up at Cozy Corner.
The whole nation is always in this barbecue war. You got Texas, you got Memphis, you got Chicago does ribs.
Who else you got?
Chicago's like the
Who
home
else
of
you
beef.
got?
I don't know. Who else does ribs really good? Ribs.
You know who does ribs really good?
Who?
Louisville. I was surprised. There's a restaurant,
Kentucky.
I'm not sure if it's still there, Dos Crows in Louisville. Some of the best dry rub ribs I've ever had. They were so good, I wanted to FedEx a rack of ribs to myself.
North Carolina does a good sauce. You got ribs and then you get into the sauce wars.
Oh, well.
I lived in Charlotte, so I like the North Carolina sauce.
That's all we got here. I'm the Cordeline Cortez. Stay lifted and eat more barbecue.
Yeah. Got vegan.